Welcome to the Business Legends Podcast, where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs so that you can learn from their successes, pump up your own inspiration, and learn about the people that make change happen. I'm the host of the show, Reese Arlen. Next to my co-host, my bestie, the numero uno, Christian Webb. Say hello.
I want to let y'all know he never does that clap check. It must be because we're across from professionals.
You know, I'm just trying to get my game together. I even brought the background, which I've missed the last three, which I conveniently didn't mention.
He's been stressing at reading, y'all.
You know, it is what it is.
It's all the small things that make the big
That's
difference.
right.
We appreciate it. I mean, the clap was well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Both your hands came together at the same time, and that's really key. So you got that right.
It's good.
That is awesome. Today we are joined by Jarod, Latch, and Tim Baier with Spiracle Buzz. Guys, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Spiracle Media.
Spiracle Media.
Yeah.
Spiracle Media. Okay,
You
Spiracle.
can pick that back up. It is. It's confusing.
Spiracle Buzz, Spiracle Media. So find them on the web at spiraclebuzz.com, but they are actually Spiracle Media. My apologies. But hey, we get extra plugs by doing it that way.
Exactly.
So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So you guys are both news anchors. What is it like to be with just regular old podcast dudes like us compared to your background of amazing news media?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's that great of a background, but no, it's awesome. It's good to be with you guys today. I think it's fun to be able to have a moment to talk business with people,
For sure.
And with fellow business owners. That's exciting. So yeah, it's good to be with you guys.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners about Spiracle Media, spiraclebuzz.com, and tell us a little bit about how you guys got into business and what you guys do for business.
Well, it goes back about 12 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. Tim and I, as mentioned, we're both in the local TV game here in Charlotte. That's how we met each other, because it's a very close-knit circle of people when you're in the media. And as we got talking, you know, the aspirations early on were to continue to go to different markets, continue to climb the ladder, get these bigger and better jobs that are supposedly out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what we got to talking about is how much we love Charlotte. And so as we continued to go down that path, we said, well, what can we use that we're currently engaged with? And for us as sports anchors, we were dealing with athletes and technology and all these platforms that were taking off, like Facebook and Twitter. They were still on the upward curve.
Sure.
And we were looking at how they were using these platforms, and they didn't need us as much as they used to.
Mm-hmm.
They would use us as a secondary resource if they needed to amplify a message. But primarily, they had all the control.
Right.
We used to say, become your own media outlet. They had that power. So we said, well, how do we get in this game a little bit? We're already connected to some of these athletes. And that was the initial step that we took. The idea that we figured that, hey, let's go forward with this, was in the social media space and working with athletes.
Wow.
And then a couple years down the line, you know, we made the whole business term pivot.
Right.
And we went to all video content, which we were already doing, which felt naturally with our storytelling background.
Makes sense.
And then you fast forward to today, and a lot of iterations in between,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we have this version of Spiracle Media.
Yeah, that's incredible. Can you, and it's okay if you can't, because I know that over the course of 12 years, there's many moments, ups and downs in a business, but was there any moment that was kind of like your break when something happened, maybe you were working with a certain athlete or something like this, and something happened where it really just took your business to the next level?
So there's a couple things. One, I mean, our first client out of the gate in the athlete world was Steph Curry. So it was a great
amazing.
first client to have.
Yeah.
Steph was awesome.
That all
to
makes
work
sense.
with.
Davidson, I get it.
Strong connection there.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
we used to cover Steph back in the day when we were sports
I
anchors.
love Steph.
Got to know him really well, and so we approached him with the idea. He liked it a lot. He jumped on board, and so we ran his social media for his first 3 years in the league.
Oh wow, it's
So
amazing.
that was an awesome experience for us. It got us a lot of notoriety, and that way we were able to walk into businesses here in Charlotte and say, hey, we're working with Steph Curry, and that obviously garnered weight. So that was a
Sure.
good help in the beginning. But I would say, to be honest, the real pivot or exciting point was a real negative. We got fired by one of our biggest social media clients. It was a staffing company here in town. We went in there, this is a good story, we went in with a birthday cake for our client because it was his birthday.
Oh no.
And he had planned on firing us that day, and he didn't know we were bringing the birthday cake. Showed up with the cake, really excited, happy birthday, and he's like, yeah, by the way, just so you know, we're going in a different direction.
Wow.
Lets us go. And we walk out of that meeting, and instead of being dejected or down, I said, all right, listen, let's go have lunch. This is going to be a good thing in the long run. And so we all went
Right.
out to lunch. And literally that was the moment in which we turned the company from social media websites and video to all video.
Wow.
And we had just made a hire maybe a week or two earlier, who is our chief creative officer now, Dave Kernodle, and he really helped define the vision for our video side and the quality of what we were going to do, and that really set us off on a path to grow.
Yeah.
And I think if we had stayed in that social media website space, we would have just been drowned out. I think this allowed us to really differentiate ourselves. We were early in the video space. We had a background in broadcasting and journalism, so that differentiated us in the space. And so that's really what's allowed us to grow to where we are now.
So real question, did you leave the cake?
We did
Yes.
leave the cake, and I have since run into Brian years later and said he owes me a cake. And so we're still friends to this day.
Sure.
He's definitely brought us back in on other projects and stuff. So
Yeah.
that was another good lesson in not burning bridges and still being able to keep those relationships
You
going.
should write a book about that, leaving the cake.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That was a chapter. We've looked at writing a book before.
Yeah.
You know, throughout the years and just the sample case studies of things, and the cake would definitely be a part of the
That's
book.
right.
Because it is a key moment, like you asked,
Yeah.
along the path.
It's so amazing. You know, we end up, and it's very rare that we get the opportunity to speak with other people that are in the marketing space on Business Legends. We end up with people, all different types of
Sure.
business, you know. But what I've found is that sometimes blessings really do come in disguise, you know. Believe it or not, the same exact thing happened to us. Our biggest client went a different direction. Again, still very good relationship with them and everything like that, but they were monopolizing my time. And as a consequence of that, I wasn't able to do things that help us grow the business and work on different things like that. And it's amazing because, you know, it was this blip, this speed bump of, oh, you know, we don't have this revenue coming in. But then it was like, you know, next thing you know, within a month we had 10 contracts that were far superseding the value of the one because it was
Yeah.
monopolizing our
And
time,
it's fun
you
to be
know?
able to say that now. At the moment,
sure.
it feels like the most
Awful.
stressful thing you've ever gone through.
Absolutely.
Your heart,
When you get
your
to
heart
the other
flattens
side of
out.
it. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then you get to the other side of it, and now looking back on it, you can see it as a positive.
Mhm.
Going through it is tough. I
Yeah.
mean, for sure.
And
Yeah.
I think what it teaches you as well, as you go and get on in more years of experience on the business side, you can negate some of those harmful experiences
Mhm.
and be proactive.
Sure.
Where you know, hey, this is going to be harmful to the company, or this isn't the best project, or our team is not going to have a good time with this.
Right.
Are we setting ourselves up for success? And I don't think you ask those questions,
Right.
at least not that bluntly, unless you've been through it
Yeah.
and you see what it does, and you see the other side,
Yeah.
which is more important.
So, quick question. So, do you think if you knew what you knew now, you would have went back, you would have canceled that contract and went that direction, or do you think you would have held on to it until it canceled?
No, I think we would have held on to it till it canceled. I
Yeah.
think at the
That's
time it was allowing us to pay all of us salaries. It was
Sure.
allowing us to grow and learn. It allowed us to make that first hire of Dave,
Mhm.
which we never would have been able to make if we hadn't have had that contract, right? So
Exactly.
that was secure monthly recurring revenue, which we're in a business now. When we made the pivot to video, it's very project based.
Mhm.
And so it's not as recurring. Now we work with partners a lot and we recurringly work with them, but they're not on the hook. They
Right.
could go elsewhere if they wanted.
Mhm.
And so at the time, to have that recurring revenue, it allowed us to at least make decisions and give us some freedom.
Mhm.
If we had let that go beforehand, I don't know that we would have had the freedom to make decisions.
Yeah, a lot of people say they're like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I'm a firm believer that I think all the steps, the bad ones and the good ones,
Mhm.
lead you to where you are today. And if you take one away, you're not gonna be exactly where you're at
And
today.
it wasn't a negative relationship. I mean,
It
we
was
were
just-
learning and growing, and there were so many more positives. And it
Yeah.
just at that moment, they felt like they needed something else.
Sure.
That I don't think worked out as well as they would have wished on their side.
Right.
But that's a moot point. But for us, it was about the experience and the learning. Yes, because all those things come together in some sort of sequential order,
Yeah.
and they all work for where you're going to go. And,
Right.
and what are you going to do with them? How are you going to bottle them up? Are you just going to
Yeah.
throw them away? You're going to learn from them and get better.
Mhm.
And you can't do that if you miss on those experiences.
This is a great point for young entrepreneurs. Like, really, like a lot of people don't start businesses because they're scared of not knowing how to do what they're trying to start, and it's like that's so backwards.
Mhm. I love Jared's face. There's like.
The only way to learn
We got a
it
close
is-
up on that.
yeah.
We're gonna close
The
up
only-
on that.
The only way to learn it, and I tell my 6-year-old this,
Oh God, you
is
sound
to
so much like
experience
Christian.
it
You
and
sound
to
so
have
much like Christian.
repetition. That's the only way to learn.
Yeah.
I mean,
It really is.
and went through on a basketball note a tough loss last night for
Mhm.
Davidson against
Mhm.
Charlotte. But conversation this morning was, if you don't do things where there's a chance to lose or fail, then you also have no chance to win.
Right.
So you've got to get in the center ring.
Yeah.
Can you get knocked out? Sure, but you got to take that chance. and then how do you respond?
Yeah.
But if there's no chance to win, that means, those things have to work together. You don't plan to lose or fail, but it's part of everything.
Jared,
Right.
do you do voice training? I need some training.
You need some training? I
That
can work
voice
with
is-
you.
his
voice is so
We can
chocolate.
do
Like
it.
y'all news anchors. You guys.
Goodness gracious.
We can talk about that.
I tell this story often. I've probably told it a couple times on Business Legends too. But when we first got into business, Christian and I are very similar people. We have very similar outlooks and whatnot. But as personalities go, he's more like head always in the clouds, and I'm very grounded, rooted in life and things like that. And so he's always pushing me to grow in that way, learn things that I don't know. And I'm always trying to like pull him down, but no, we can't do that type of thing. So you create this this business tension, and it's really served us well. It almost creates a trampoline for our
Yeah,
business.
it hurts my back really bad.
Here's another side note on
You
this.
got a good chiropractor for you.
Yeah. So he knows that just my personality. If he like commends me, oh, you've done a really great job. It's not that I'll slack off, but I won't do as good as if he's like
hard on you.
Yeah, hard on me, like you suck or whatever. And so every day he's like, oh, what are you doing for work today? I know you're just doing nothing today, just sitting there and
And all of a sudden, like 11 things get done
swiping on
before
Tinder
lunch.
and whatever else. But so I'll never forget the facial expressions he gave me when 5 years ago we got into business, and he'd come into my office and I would just see this smirk on his face, and just as soon as I saw it, and keep in mind we've been best friends for, I don't know, 15 years or whatever, and he said, and I just look at him and go, no, whatever you're about to say, the answer is no to
Too
it.
bad, I've already said
And
yes.
he's like, well, we're gonna get paid this to do it. I'm like, all right, well, guess we're gonna do it.
This sounds
But-
like a very similar
Yeah.
similar situation.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
If
yeah.
we were sitting in the opposite seats, then we would be right across from each other.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so,
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, so we run Spiracle on EOS. I don't know if you guys have come across that yet,
Mhm.
Entrepreneur Operating System. And so in that system, there are two roles. There's the visionary and the integrator, and very much so, it defines those two roles. And so
Mhm.
in our company, I play the visionary role. Jarod plays the integrator role, and it's amazing because we would get nothing done without Jarod. And similarly, I think we would not be pushed as much if I hadn't have pushed too. So I think the
Mhm.
relationship, that yin and yang that you guys are talking about, before we were running EOS, that's how we operated.
Wow.
And it's
Same.
definitely about how much our relationship has been. And then you read, there's a book called Rocket Fuel that literally talks about this relationship. And as we both read it, we were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that does
Mhm.
happen. And so it really is a important relationship for a business to be able to grow, because if you're always in the clouds and not getting anything done, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. If you're always just trying to get things done and not looking up and seeing where to go, then you're just going to be stuck at the point that you're at. And so
Mhm.
those two working together really allows you to grow, but in a healthy fashion,
Sure.
rather than just growing too fast and burning out like a star, or just staying straight and flat. And so we've been very open about that with our relationship in how we both operate, and knowing, to your point, each other's buttons and how to push, not maybe necessarily to the negative point of yours, but,
yeah. We're toxic.
but the idea that you know what's going to make somebody else be on board or excite them, but then also knowing that you got to check yourself sometimes too,
Sure.
because you can't get too excited about something that's crazy.
Yeah.
And being open and honest about that, I think, has been really beneficial for our relationship.
I'm going to write that down. EOS system?
Yeah.
EOS.
I'll
Sounds
check that
incredible.
out.
We're gonna take a little break, get some more coffee, and then we'll come back to it. And we're back. So on the subject of positive start and 2 for 2 and things like that, there's this great YouTube video. It was done by a guy that was like he was a high-ranking general or corporal in the Navy, and he talks about the importance of making your bed every day.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you guys have
I've
seen
read
this.
that.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
you knew exactly what I was talking about. But he talks about every day that you wake up, no matter how good of a day you're having, bad of a day, if you've slept in, if you've gotten up early, if you have stress going on or whatever, the first thing you must do is make your bed, because once you've made your bed, you've accomplished your first task for the day, and you've set your life in order. Now I don't listen to that, so I never make my bet.
I was going to ask who here actually makes the bet, right?
Let's say I
My
never
wife
do
does.
it.
Yeah, there you go. There
Do
you
you
go.
ever make the bet?
And my
Yeah.
wife does.
So, but I feel the same way. Dentist's son over here, but I feel the same way about brushing my teeth.
Success.
I don't think, yeah, but I mean, I know that's a little silly thing, but I don't feel like my day has started until I've brushed my teeth. And sometimes he'll call me before I brush my teeth, and I'll be like, hey, I gotta brush my teeth. Like go away.
He doesn't even remember the conversation.
No, my brain, I'm not a morning person.
So with the industries always changing, what do y'all see coming in the future for videography?
You can take this one.
Well, that's a loaded, that's
Loaded.
a loaded question
Yeah.
as far as the future of the industry. I think what's interesting is that there are so many different options.
Yeah.
And it's not so much with the video itself. I think you can only go so many ways with the video.
Sure.
But it's how it's used and what platforms are utilized. How are people engaging with the video?
Right.
Is it a more immersive experience? Can they choose their own adventure? What are they doing with their phone when they see it?
Yeah.
Where is it being seen? I
God,
think
he's about to say it, by the way.
I think it's
know.
just there's so many different options
Yeah, yeah.
of what you can do and formats and those things have changed
Sure.
for the most part. I don't think story has changed.
Right.
We could go way back since
Yeah.
humans were roaming the earth telling each other stories and passing
Sure.
those down. And storytelling is storytelling. Now, can you do it in a more visually stunning way? Yes. I think those are more incremental changes.
Yeah.
But the technology is a more vast change.
Mhm.
There's more rapidity to it. And so it's how are we using it? Are we really on the front end too for our partners, which are our clients? Are we diagnosing the best way to maximize value?
Mhm.
Take this content, take these stories, put it where they need to be so it resonates with their audience.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting part on audience as well is that there's different behaviors
Mhm.
and there's so many different platforms.
Sure.
So you can't drill down in one way. I think
Yeah.
it's the same as a marketing approach right now. There's not a magic bullet.
Right.
There are 4 or 5 prongs to a marketing approach, and they all have to work together because there's all these different behaviors. And
Sure.
it's a really interesting time, but I think it's an exciting time. I know, Tim, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one that we get a lot of times is quality, right? So it's, user-generated content better? Is high-end, really nice-looking quality video, storytelling, any of those kind of pieces, what is better, right? And I think to Jared's point, it's the use case that determines that. I don't
Right.
think that, automatically, because we do high-end great video stuff, that user-generated content is crap. I think that there's a place for it. There
Yeah.
are use cases for it. I know when I'm on Instagram and I see something that, somebody shot with a product that they used themselves, even though they might not have used it themselves, but
Right.
they've been hired to show me that they used themselves. But I get engaged in that. Whereas maybe if it was a really professional video of that product, I might not have gotten engaged. So
Mhm.
there are use cases, I think, where it matters and where it makes sense. And I don't think every single company and every single product or service needs to do high-end video. But I think when there are the right cases, I think it really does help. And so it's really looking and dialing down to what's the best solution for what you're trying to accomplish.
Have y'all found that anything's changed in this is going to be a loaded word, so engagement, but not the engagement as in there's messing with an ad, but the fact that now your audience is able to actually engage with commercials and engage with videos, do stuff on them. Do you want to see this ad or do you want to see this style ad? It's the same product,
Sure.
2 different versions. Are y'all starting to see where the actual audience is engaging with your videos and making the next thing happen?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a couple things. Choose your own adventure, like Jarod talked about. So similar to what you're saying, a lot of different video options that you have that, you can go down the tunnel of about a product, right? So you can get to the end of a short video, 15 seconds, and then they could choose to continue to follow that path and go down more, or maybe they're like, I want to exit the off-ramp here. And so you can see where those paths and journeys are happening now that you never used to be able to see.
Yeah.
So I think that's one big place. And then the other thing that I don't think a lot of people do, especially in the video space, is A/B testing.
Mhm.
It's a expensive thing to do because you're having to produce multiple videos. But when you do it correctly, and maybe you've done one shoot, but then you've edited it in multiple ways, you can play that out and see what's working best. Put a little bit of money behind that A/B test, and then once you see what's working best, then
Yeah.
put some gas behind the one that
They may
does.
think it's too much money, but I mean, A/B testing,
Right.
if you can find what actually works in one run instead of wasting an entire
Saves you
video.
money.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a sustained run.
Yeah.
But I think something tangential to what we're talking about in trends is in our approach to what people are going to find engaging and what resonates with them.
Mhm.
And I think if you go back even 5 to 7 years, 'cause stuff changes, you used to be able to feed the consumer what you wanted them to hear. So you could say, here's what it is, buy this for these reasons, and here's a talking head that's going to talk directly to you.
Right.
It doesn't resonate with people anymore. They want to see themselves in the characters. They want to understand, why is that product going to better my life?
Mhm.
It's sort of flipped in the way the messaging is. People are turned off by the salesy approach. So
Right.
you can use story, you can wield that power of story, but you've got to adjust it. You know, it's really built on these characters, how you develop them. Do I see myself in that person?
Mhm.
They're going through the same experience. They've got the same amount of children. They've done whatever professionally, but
Mhm.
I see myself in them, and then it resonates with me.
And
Yeah.
I would say authenticity is the second piece of that,
Yeah.
because, you know, if you try to weave that story and it comes across as fake, hokey, whatever, people sniff that out much faster now
Agreed.
than they ever did before. And
Mhm.
so if you're telling authentic stories about, you know, whether your product or service is going to help them, that's when you can really connect. Whereas if you're really trying to push out marketing slogans and campaigns that are very, you know, in your face, it does seem to backfire now.
Sure, makes perfect sense. There's a great book. It's called, gosh, I can never remember the name of it, but I'll tell you
Very
the premise
humble.
of it. Yeah, no, it was a great book. Ooh. But
It'll be in the notes. The show
yeah,
notes.
yeah. We'll put it in there. We'll put it on Amazon.
In the write-up.
Yeah.
Book
Yeah,
list,
yeah,
right
there
at
you
the
go.
bottom.
One
Books
book,
mentioned
one
during
book.
this podcast.
Yeah, one book. But it talks about 5 to 7 years ago. It talks about the Apple method, Apple computers, and it talks about how before Apple, the way that typically a big corporation would advertise their product would be on the same way that you'd sell a car: feature, function, benefit. Here's your product. Here's the feature. Here's the function. Here's the benefit. Right? And then Apple went reverse. They started on the benefit, and so instead of taking an outside-in approach, they took an inside-out approach, and they said, well, Steve Jobs went and he said, this is going to change your life. And you don't know if it's a computer, or in this case it was probably an iPod back
Mhm.
then. But he said, this is going to change your life. And then it kind of captivates the audience. And lo and behold, what's the most expensive company ever, pretty much, you know? So very interesting how things change and how we have to migrate the message. Kind of to pivot, as Jarod put it earlier, how does this affect you guys internally? So, you know, everybody, ever since COVID, it seems like, has had these extraordinary employment challenges, I'll say. And, you know, we have HR, we have benefits, we have things like, you know, keeping our salaries competitive with other people in the market. How has that affected you guys? And does that go to the end user? Does it seem like you have to increase the price for the same thing? Or how do you guys adapt to challenges like that?
It's a great question, and there's a lot of layers to it.
Of course.
Because there are challenges with people regardless in general.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, you know, our core focus is to evoke emotion by creating and telling stories. And so that's the number one thing that we try to stress with our team is the work we're doing together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are we getting better? Are we meeting that core focus? And then I think a big emphasis for us, especially going forward into next year, is mental and emotional health. And you've got to make sure your team is healthy.
Yeah.
Now, the salary thing, sure, as a business, you have to look at that. And
Yeah.
there's only so much we can do, but we've got to ensure the environment that they're in, that they find value in their work, in their teammates, in us as the owners of the company, that they feel this connectiveness. Because if we lose that, it doesn't matter about the salary, doesn't matter about, they'll go shopping around in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But our core team that we have, which is about 16 strong right now, is making sure that they're taken care of all around.
Mhm.
Last year, probably dancing around your question, and I'll let Tim follow in the rest as I go
course.
off on a tangent. But we started a care team function within our organization beginning of
That's
last
amazing.
year. And their responsibility, a couple individuals, because I got this idea and I said, hey, I can't do it myself, so
Mhm.
come talk to me. I'd love for a few people to step up. We had two individuals that came to me and said, hey, we'd love to lead this. And I said, this is fantastic. And so the function of that care team is both internal and external. So on the internal side, it's to do the things as the simple things of celebrating a birthday,
Mhm.
different milestone. If somebody's at home sick, we want to send a meal over. They've lost a family member, same sort of thing. We're taking care of our people inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then externally, how can we go serve the community together? We'll adopt some families at Christmas this year. And that stuff is powerful to me. It brings people together. It does the right thing. And it's been cool to see our Christmas tree around the holiday with presents that are going to other families.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that work together, but we've got to get the people part right inside our house for them to have meaning.
Yeah.
You know, they want to be working towards something greater than themselves. How do we present that? That can be a challenge. You know, on the salary front, yes, as a small business, we can't win a arms race with salaries.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. It'll always outpace us, but we have to get to a fair point where we are constantly looking at that and figuring out
Sure.
what's the market doing. But again, I think that the biggest part of that is the value of individuals, the work they're doing. Do they feel appreciated?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are they measured against something? And do they find value in their teammates? And I think that's where it is for me.
Yeah. Well said.
What he said.
What could you add to that,
Yeah,
honestly?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think though, Jared's right. We're not going to battle necessarily in the salary world. I mean, if
Mhm.
you want to go work for some big corporate, they're going to be able to pay you more than we can.
right.
I'm totally fine telling anybody that.
Mm-hmm.
But your quality of life could change.
Yep.
You won't necessarily be in a small environment where you know every single person that's working in this office. You know everything about them. They know everything about you. They're there for you when something, goes down. And so that's a question that you have to ask yourself is what do I want out of my quote unquote job, my
Mhm.
career? And so, we're still giving them opportunities to grow. And there was a time as business owners where you were like, I want to keep everybody here. I don't want anybody to leave. I'm going to do anything I can to keep them here. I think COVID really matured us as business owners to realize that, one, not everybody's going to be able to stay forever.
Right.
One, because maybe the business isn't going to be doing as well because things like COVID happen.
Mm-hmm.
But two, people are going to want to change and maybe look for
Right.
something different, and that's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
And so we're okay with that, and we're going to try and help people grow to the point that they can go on to that next thing that they want, and be proud of whatever they go on to do, and try to help them get that next landing spot if that's the case. So it's definitely been a maturity as a business owner that we've seen specifically in the last 2 to 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
that we've really realized, hey, it's okay if they go, and it's important that we keep really good relationships with everybody,
Yeah.
and we'll go from there. And so I think that has been a big change for us, and I think that's freed me up as a business owner to feel comfortable about change and newness and old people moving on and whatever that looks like. And so that's sort of where we're at now.
Yeah, that's incredible. As you guys were speaking, I always think about how many, no matter what you do for business, how many effects are mirrored in whatever you do for business. And on the point of people moving on and they're wanting a different change and things like that. The first guy I ever hired, he moved on to an opportunity he couldn't pass up. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity for him 2 years ago, now,
Yeah.
probably plus or minus. And to your point of maintaining a good relationship with these folks, we hired his wife 6 months ago. You know what I mean? So it kind of comes full circle like that. And then I'm big on culture, Jarod, as well. And one of the things that I always say is, if you give back, it's good for your heart, And so one of the things that we do, we try to do quarterly. It's just what we try to do. We're not always perfect at it, nobody is, but quarterly we try to do a philanthropic event with our employees. Here next month we'll do a Samaritan's Purse thing. And my big thing is there's no reason you can't have fun while you're doing it. It's something that has been instilled in me ever since my old fraternity days and stuff like that. So we'll do a Samaritan's Purse thing. We might be out in the parking lot tailgating, and I'll just leave it at that beforehand type of thing. And we just have a blast doing it. And the word that you used was connectivity, and it's just a perfect word for that. It makes everybody feel more connected with one another. And you're right. I mean, it's something that as the listeners of the show can think about is how do you create a company culture that supports each other internally and externally with that.
This is a great transition because we're talking about HR, but since culture is such a big part, you were telling me earlier over coffee that y'all have actually started doing business, not just with marketing, but actually with HR departments.
Mhm.
Can y'all tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a significant need there that goes around the challenges of hiring.
Yeah.
And the whole, where did everybody go? X amount of
Mhm.
people retired, others switch industry, others are in hiding. I don't know
Right.
where all these people
Under
are,
rocks and
and no
caves.
one does. No one
Yeah,
can
yeah.
tell you. But with that, companies of all sizes are looking to attract and retain what they have. And
Mhm.
video is a powerful tool for that.
For sure.
Because it reinforces morale, number
Mhm.
one, and it also makes you look good to prospective hires. And
Yeah.
so we've been working a lot with across HR, communications, even PR and marketing. They've sort of all combined forces in a way
Yeah.
at some level, where HR will bring us in and we may work directly with them, or communications has an initiative but it's tied to HR.
Mhm.
These can be internal and external facing pieces. That's something that's never been in such high demand as it is now, and it makes sense, but you want to use
Sure.
the right tactic, and videos at the top of that list for if you want to connect with somebody in a strong way, showcase what you do, and again, number two, keep the people you have so
Right.
they remember, okay, this is why I work here.
Yeah.
You know, last week I had a couple of job interviews, but you've reminded me why I don't need to go anywhere.
Right.
And video is a fantastic way to do that.
Yeah,
For
the
sure.
analogy I'll use is like right now with college football, NIL, right?
Mhm.
So college coaches now have to go and spend their recruiting season recruiting new players, but also re-recruiting all of their old
Mhm.
players and
Yeah.
keeping them on with them and not
Yeah.
going into the transfer portal, not leaving them.
Right.
And so that time now has completely changed and divided and split them up. And so they're going into living rooms of players that have already played for their team for a year and having to still reconnect with them and
Mhm.
re-get them excited. Well, that's having to happen on the HR side. When we're at 3.6%, 3.5% unemployment,
Mhm.
we're really at the point where we're hiring the unemployable.
Right.
And so the people that you have that are good, you got to keep them.
Right.
And so you have to keep reminding them of why it's good to be where they are.
Mhm.
And so that's what a lot of these companies are doing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think that kind of goes, this whole conversation went full circle, because I think that will go, I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to see in the future, I think we're going to see a lot of companies focus on retention a lot. And, I think that up till this point, people take a direct approach to things a lot of times. So for example, I have an issue with hiring, I put out more hiring ads, direct approach, versus what you're talking about, which is we take an indirect approach. This company's amazing, we're going to connect with you, we're going to have your back, or whatever else type of a thing. It's an indirect approach of retention. And I just love/hate seeing the statistics on what happens and how much a new employee costs an
Mhm.
average company. It's insane. It's insane, because if you just keep an employee for an average of a month or two longer, I mean, your bottom line is affected very positively with that. So,
Yeah, I think there'll be a cyclical nature to this as well, like
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
It's just how far will it, or how fast will it come around?
Sure.
We've seen evidence already that people are already returning to jobs they left.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Within a short window.
Yeah.
Within a year or so, they figured out, oh no, what did I do?
Right.
I just felt like I needed to change, which is fine. Go do it and figure
Yeah.
it out. But they've gone back
Yeah.
to where they started.
I'm really curious what happens with this though. Like I've thought about that a lot when you have a situation where, like you said, people go back to their old jobs. I always wonder if there's any like bad blood or distrust as a consequence of this, and it probably just depends case by case.
It does. I think, it's funny, my wife has been in marketing as well, and she's been at different agencies, and the known thing at larger agencies was you had to leave to be able to come back and make more money.
Oh yeah.
If you stayed at
That's
the
the way Reynolds
agency
was.
and tried to climb through the ranks,
Mhm.
you got smaller pay raises. But if you left and went to another agency and then came back, your pay raise was exponentially better.
Wow.
And so I think that still could play a role,
Yeah.
especially in this tight market. When you get some talent back, you're gonna, still pay them pretty well.
Yeah.
And so that is happening too, I think.
You create leverage, natural leverage by
Right.
leaving and coming back. I mean, that's
Sure.
when we talked about salaries earlier. Starting salary is crazy
Yeah.
for people with no experience.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be as high as it is.
Right.
But they demand the salary, and your first response is, well, what have you actually done?
Right.
They haven't done anything professionally.
Right.
But yet you're forced, in a lot of ways, if you want them, you have to pay that salary. And then it screws up the whole ladder
For sure.
in terms of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So that is a small business challenge. Corporates can do whatever they
Well
want,
said.
and then they cut 10,000 jobs and they don't think anything about it. They can be more nimble
Yeah.
with
Which
their
is ironic
cash.
because they're not nimble.
They're not, but when it comes to cutting
Yeah, right.
workforce,
Right.
we're going to slash thousands of people.
Yeah.
And okay, we're good. We fixed what we're doing. Small businesses, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
And that entry point salary now, where it's like,
Yeah.
come on, guys.
You're
And we're kind of
losing
old
so
school
much.
in the way that we had to build our way, especially in TV. Like you
Mhm.
had to take your steps. You didn't start up here.
Right.
And now they pushed up to here with an entry point job. Well, that's not an entry point salary, but if you want the person, you're forced to pay it. And it's
Right.
really backwards, but there's not really an out.
Yeah.
So you feel sort of trapped in that way.
Yeah.
It's a little tough on the actual, like, they always say, like, y'all can just pay your teammates more, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, well, I'm not charging more, so
Right.
that's not how business works.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right, you have to do it anyway for good talent.
Mhm.
And it's like, it
You know,
hurts.
one of the things that we struggle with, and we got a jet right after this one too,
Sure.
but one of the things that we struggle with is we've done it, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. It's just the fact of life, and it's all people, you know. Sometimes you get a workaholic, and not that's necessarily the best thing in the world, but sometimes you get somebody that works hard, let's put it that way. Sometimes you get somebody that doesn't, and it's just, there's no consistency with that. I think it's a person by person basis with it. But guys, I feel like we could talk forever. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We always like to sign off with a funny question. I think I have something today. So my it's not really a funny question, but my question for you all is, if you could do a video for any company, what would it be and why?
Oh man, I wish we had got some prep on that one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, Business Marketing Solutions Group is not an
Yeah.
answer, by the way.
I mean, you talked about Apple earlier. I
Yeah.
love their product videos.
Yeah,
When
I
they
do
do
too.
launch
Yeah.
of new stuff, and so yeah, I would love to be involved with those and that quality of what they're putting out. I mean, I love that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the one I'll throw with.
Cool.
Yeah, I like the when we talking about humor
Yeah.
in videos, and you look at the stuff with Dr. Rick.
Oh, sure.
In campaigns like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
You know, stuff along those lines.
Like humor
and
stuff.
You see those come out. It's a series of videos that
Yeah.
it relates to real life.
Yeah,
It's spot on.
Right.
With what it delivers.
Yeah. Christian, you're not out of this. What would you do?
Oh, me?
Ah.
Oh, man,
Gotta
I
put
wouldn't
him
even,
on the
I should have been thinking.
Yep, sure. I know mine, but it's a stupid answer. But
Well, you go first. I'll
okay.
think.
So mine. There's a specific reason, but mine would be the Budweiser commercials, because they're always like
They're
heartfelt.
like puppies.
Well, I love puppies, but yeah, but
You're a
they.
big Clydesdale fan.
Yeah, but they do the Clydesdale, but it's always like an all American like feel good story. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you always watch. I don't even drink Budweiser, you know, but you watch it and you're like, that's an awesome commercial. Like I always remember them afterwards.
Sure.
I know your answer too, by the
Oh,
way.
probably not. I would do the gecko off of Gecko.
Yep, yep.
Like
I
it's
was-
just it keeps going, you know. You
Yeah.
come up with something else cool and something else even cooler, and then
I miss
everybody
the
becomes
caveman.
like a.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
But they all fall in love with it, and they all like, oh, it's the lizard again, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
My answer for Christian was going to be Doritos.
oh, that'd be
So,
good.
They're good ones.
one, I have this old picture.
I
and
might
I'll
have
show
a
you guys-
Wagner for the.
I'll show you guys off air. We might even thumbnail it for the video, but so we're like, I don't know, 22 years old in this or whatever, and we were watching the Super Bowl, and there was this funny commercial with a puppy and a Dorito bag, you know, whatever, and then Christian's like, oh, look at me, and I took a picture of it, so I have this old picture of Christian with the Doritos bag.
It was the one where the dog went around the sliding glass door
Yeah.
and had the bag of Doritos in
Bag
his mouth.
inside.
And the man was looking at him like,
Yeah.
trying to chase him down.
Yeah.
That's
Guys,
pretty good.
thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been a great show.
Thanks for having
You're
us.
welcome. Appreciate it.